Welcome back to the GCN Racing News Show. Loads to get through this week. World Tour racing in the UAE, in which we had the fastest and most aggressive stage I've seen in a long time. Controversy in France, as safety issues saw many teams withdraw from the Etoile de Bessèges, plus the Volta la Comunidad Valenciana, the Tour of Oman, the first wins for Egan Bernal since his crash, and yet more cyclocross. This week in the world of racing, we learned that Jakob Söderqvist is a bit of a beast. He was a part of the Lidl Trek winning TTT team at the Volta Valenciana last week, and he averaged 446 watts for the 40-minute effort. We also learnt this week that the Zwift Academy is returning to GCN. After a one-year hiatus, we are delighted to have it back. Episode 1 will be premiering this coming Saturday, but before that, here's a teaser for the whole series.
Zwift Academy is back.
Don't break, push again, push!
Come on, come on, come on!
You're giving 100%.
Someone that's not scared to chase down a breakaway.
See what they're capable of.
And now here, come on, up!
Zwift Academy is a unique opportunity.
There are 4 finalists
And only one pro contract to win.
In 3, 2, 1... All the way to the line.
You're watching the Zwift Academy finals.
It was loud, no?
Brilliant stuff. There will be 4 episodes coming out over the next 4 Saturdays, and in that last one, we're going to find out which 2 riders got themselves pro contracts with Canyon SRAM's Zonda Crypto and Alpecin de Koenig. I honestly can't wait for you to see it all. And finally, we learnt that rider safety is back in the spotlight after a couple of worrying issues arose at the Etoile de Bessèges in southern France last week. So on Thursday, a car drove onto the course in the opposite direction to the riders, and whilst there was no major incident, it did spark a crash that forced Maxim van Gils, now a Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, to abandon the race. Previous to that, we had seen a lot of stationary vehicles on the side of the route, and then on Friday, a vehicle was on a roundabout as the peloton flew through. For many, that was just the final straw. After discussions with the commissaires and race organisation, 5 teams withdrew from the race whilst the rest continued. I'll start by saying that Maxim van Gils, thankfully, didn't sustain any serious injuries in the incident, so we can be thankful for that. But the point is that it could have been worse for anyone that was riding that race. I'm going to tread reasonably carefully with this topic because that race, like many other smaller events, is run by a heap of volunteers who only want the best for the sport. The race has taken place since 1971, and it really is a staple of the early season preparation for a lot of riders and a lot of teams. I take my hat off to anyone or any organisation that does so much for the sport. And it goes without saying that it would be a real shame if we started to lose races like the Etoile de Bessèges. But, and there is a but, rider safety has to be priority number 1. I've got a lot of sympathy with the riders and teams who withdrew from the race. It's disconcerting, to say the least, to see so many stationary vehicles at the side of the road when you're racing through. And then it's even more worrying to know that cars are getting onto the route that should be closed to traffic. When you fly downhill or through towns or cities ahead of a sprint, you have to have the confidence that you will not meet a vehicle coming in the opposite direction. When that confidence is gone, well, I wouldn't want to be taking that risk, and I'm sure many of you wouldn't either. Cycling is an inherently dangerous sport, whether that's when you're out training on the open road or racing shoulder to shoulder with 150 other riders at 60 kilometers per hour in a race. But professional level bike races should not have cars driving on the route. If there are, that's a major problem that needs to be addressed by both the race organiser and by the UCI. As far as I can see, the UCI are yet to release any kind of statement or make any comment about what happened at the race, but I hope that they're taking the time to get all the facts in place before doing so. But I'll be very interested to see what that statement says when it comes out. Incidentally, early last year, I was at a UCI conference within which the subject of rider and race safety was discussed. And what the UCI said there was that they simply make the rules and then it's up to the race organisers to adhere to those rules, i.e. it's the organiser's responsibility for safety and not the UCI's. When questioned further as to what would happen if organisers didn't guarantee rider safety, the UCI said that there could be a sanction of the race and it might be demoted in its UCI classification. And to me, that kind of implied that it's OK for riders and teams of lower rank to ride races that didn't meet the required safety standards. Anyway, this is an enormous subject and topic, and one that I am again looking to do a deep dive in a video that should come out later on this year. But if there's anything in particular that you'd like me to broach in that video, please let me know in the comment section just down below this video. Also, what were your thoughts on the incident? Were the teams that withdrew right to do so, or do you think they overreacted in that situation? Again, let me know. Back to the race itself then, and of those who did continue on, Kevin Volta was the quickest to cover the 5 stages. He was first to the summit finish of stage 4, ahead of the Saint-Michel duo of Thomas Champion and Nicolas Brouillard, and he was also quickest over the 10.6 kilometre individual time trial which came on the final day of racing. So 3 wins in 2 days for the Frenchman and his team Arkea B&B Hotels, not a bad haul. Belgian champion Arnaud Delis won the shortened stage 3, whilst Paul Magnier and Soren Varenshold won stages 1 and 2 respectively. They were both amongst the riders who'd pull out of the race on Friday. I actually saw some stats from Magnier's win on day 1. So for the last 1 minute and 16 seconds up the climb to the finish, he averaged 780 watts with a max of 1230. He's some talent, isn't he? Meanwhile, at the UAE Women's Tour, we had the first proper crosswinds of the season, and my word, did they take advantage of them. So it was stage 2 of the race, only 111 kilometres, but ridden at warp speed. Took them just 2 hours and 17 minutes to cover the distance, an average speed of 48.4 kilometres per hour, which is over 30 miles per hour. A group of 5 went clear pretty much from the gun. 3 from UAE ADQ, Gillespie, Swinkles, and most importantly, their leader Longo Borghini. They were joined by Vives, who'd won stage 1, and Lily Williams of Human Powered Health. For what seemed like an eternity, they kind of dangled in front of the peloton, but it was when they changed direction and hit a headwind that the lead grew significantly. By that point, the groups behind had reformed, and it felt like every team was looking at other teams to take the responsibility of chasing them down. Either way, their lead ballooned, and whilst it looked like they might get caught at a point when the chasing started in earnest behind, the teams then paid for their efforts and eventually ran out of gas. The result of the stage was a formality. Vives comfortably sprinted to her 2nd successive win, but Longo Borghini took close to a minute and a half on all of her main GC rivals. So the only question that remained then was how much that effort had taken out of her ahead of the summit finish on the Jebel Hafit climb the following day. However, we soon got the answer to that question. Silvia Persico set a pace so high that only a handful of riders remained, and then when Longo Borghini attacked, nobody had an answer. It was the perfect race and the perfect day, actually, for UAE ADQ. Persico, despite all her work, took 2nd on the stage, and they finished 1-2 on the general classification to boot. Kim Lecourt took 3rd overall, whilst the final stage was won by, you guessed it, Lorena Vives. So 3 wins in her first 4 days of racing for the European champion. She'll almost undoubtedly surpass 100 career wins at some point this year. She's already on 96, and she's still just 25 years old. The Longo Borghini signing really looks like it's going to take UAE ADQ up another level this year, though, doesn't it? So last season, they took 12 wins. This year, they've already got 3. The men's race kicks off on Monday, and I'll actually be there for the first couple of stages. So if there's any particular tech you'd like to see from the race, just let me know. I did actually do a hot tech piece from the women's race last week, and you can watch that now over on GCN Tech. Right, I shall move over to Spain and the Volta a la Comunitat Valenciana, where it looked like Joao Almeida was set to take his first ever overall victory in a stage race, until almost inexplicably, he didn't. I'll start at the beginning though, with the team time trial which opened the race. Quite rare to see that discipline these days, and even more rare to see one that's 40 minutes in duration. The day itself was dominated by Lidl Trek. Whilst most teams had brought their climbing squad, Lidl brought a load of 80-kilogram sprinters, lead-out men and rouleurs, and together they obliterated the rest of the field. So they averaged 52 kilometres per hour over what was quite a lumpy course, and that meant they put over 40 seconds into the next best team, which was Jaco Alula. As I mentioned at the top of this show, Söderqvist, who rides for their development squad at the moment, averaged a whopping 446 watts for the duration. I mean, he's a big guy. He's listed as 83 kilograms online, but nevertheless, that's some seriously impressive raw power. His teammate, Matthias Vacek, rode an incredible stage the following day to keep the leader's jersey within the team. But that day was dominated by Bahrain victorious. They took a 1-2 on the stage with Santiago Buitrago and Pello Bilbao, with Joao Almeida of UAE Team Emirates in third. The young guns were back on it on Friday's stage. Ivan Romeo, now with Movistar, the man who beat Söderqvist to the under-23 time trial crown at the World Champs in Zurich last year, powered his way to his first professional victory that day. Behind him, though, Buitrago took second, and the 6 bonus seconds that came with that, with Almeida in third. However, Almeida had picked up some bonus seconds en route and so went into the full stage as the race leader, albeit just 2 seconds in front of the Colombian Buitrago. And then came the final stage that the GC could conceivably change on. Stage 4, up to Porte de Morel, a very short climb. So short, in fact, that Legal Trek rode for Jonathan Milan, who'd done incredibly well to make it into the group that was contesting the stage win that day. On Milan's wheel, coming into that final climb, was Bahrain and Buitrago, and then, quite a long way further back, UAE Team Emirates and Joao Almeida. And that is what was so bizarre about that finale. Buitrago was really the only threat to Almeida's GC lead, given that it was such a short climb, so you'd have thought he'd have been glued to his wheel. But because he wasn't, when Buitrago kicked and flew past everyone in front of him, Almeida was in no position to react. Santiago Buitrago sailed to a second stage win and basically wrapped up the general classification in the process. I mean, I feel for Almeida. I really like him as a rider, but perhaps that's where the frustration comes from. I really genuinely hope he gets his elusive GC win at some point this season. Hats off to Buitrago, though. There's every chance he was simply the stronger rider of the two and would have won whatever the positioning coming into that final climb. Anyway, the 5th and final stage was won by Jonathan Milan. Wasn't the best field of sprinters down there in Spain, but a win's a win nonetheless, and he's got himself off the mark already. In the women's one-day Volta Femina, Linda Zanetto took a win for Uno X in what was a bunch sprint finish there. OK, I had better crack on as I've got quite a few more races to wrap up, believe it or not. Over at the Tour of Oman, which is still ongoing, Olaf Koy of Visma Lease a Bike took a comfortable victory on stage 1 of the race. One of his lead-out riders, incidentally, looked to be wearing an old Giro TT helmet, which might be the direction things are going. Then on stage 2, there was a 1-2 for Soudal Quickstep. Luis Vivaca held off the group behind him for the win, whilst new recruit Valentin Paris-Pant won the uphill sprint behind for second. They started today's stage in 1st and 2nd overall. Just before I finish with road racing then, Egan Bernal of Ineos Grenadiers is back to winning ways. He's been steadily improving, of course, in the 4 years since his serious accident, and so it's fantastic to see him take a double out at the Colombian National Championships. He finished 7 seconds in front of Walter Vargas in the time trial, and then he soloed to the win in a 237-kilometre road race a few days later. There he was over 2 minutes in front of second-place Diego Camargo. Now, there were some huge gaps between all the riders at that Colombian Road National Championships, so from the results and the parkour alone, it looks like it was a brutal race. So hopefully that's a sign of good things to come for Egan Bernal this coming season. In cyclocross, Joris Nieuwenhuis took his first win in over a year at the Super Prestige in Middelkerke on Saturday. He finished 3 seconds ahead of Eli Iserbyt. Nieuwenhuis had an enforced break from the sport as he recovered from shingles at the start of the cyclocross season. Inge van der Heijden won the women's race, her first win since September. There she finished in front of Lucinda Brandt, but second was more than enough to win the overall series. Niels van der Putten won the men's. And finally, Brandt and Laurens Sweeck won at the X2O in Lille yesterday. Don't forget, you can watch a full season of cyclocross, road racing, track and mountain biking over on Discovery Plus and Max. Right, that is all for this week's GCN Racing News Show. Thank you very much for watching. See you again next week.